We are working in lesson 12. First thing we're going to do is go to our project settings, and under color management, we're going to change DaVinci YRGB to YRGB color managed. And the reason we do this is we are going to set up our input color space to the color space that was used for the camera when this footage was shot. We are going to choose Blackmagic Design Pocket 4K Film Gen 4. This is the camera that was used, and it automatically knows the input color space. We are going to keep the timeline color space at 2.4 Rec 709, which is the broadcast color space, and we leave this set. We don't change it at any point during the project. Output color space, we might change that depending on where we're going to show this, whether it be a digital cinema projector at the movie theater or whether it be for some other output. Go down here, we hit save to save our settings, and we notice the clips in our timeline will suddenly get brighter and more saturated. This particular shot, which is already overexposed, will definitely have to be corrected. As we look through our clips, one thing you notice is some of these shots, like this first one, are a little oversaturated. So what we're going to do is right-click on the thumbnail and go to Input Color Space. And if we wanted to bypass the color space that we'd set up, we could do bypass here. And now that looks the way it should. Or if you happen to know the particular color space that was exported for, sRGB in this case, you can choose that. In each one of these thumbnails, you can do the same. If you happen to have a clip that comes from a different camera, you can always bypass the color space or set just that clip to the color space of the camera that it was shot with. And this is a good first step for getting our footage normalized, meaning normal contrast and normal saturation, so that we can start our color correction. For this, I'm going to start with our offset, which is another way of saying exposure. I am going to click and drag it to about -40, and I'm bringing this down so that we don't crush the black down here in the bottom. Some of our highlights are still a little blown out, but that's okay. I've brought the entire exposure down just to get it to the point where I can start to work with it. This shot is already balanced, and we want to balance it ourselves. So I'm going to right click on the node and hit reset. And I want to show you how to use automatic corrections. We always start when we're normalizing contrast by going to our lift and setting our black point. I'm going to use this pick black point for our automatic corrections, and I'm going to use the center wheel of my mouse to zoom in, and there's a dark area here right behind the saddle of the horse, and I will click that pick black point and I will just select it right there, and you can see so far we've established the black point, and by doing that we've created more contrast and more saturation. I'm going to zoom in on some of these blown out clouds up here, and I'm going to go to our gain and pick white point, and I'm just going to select and just click right there in that bright cloud area. We've brought the highlights down a bit. As a result, we've gotten more of a white balance as well. The highlights didn't change too much, but you can always come in and bring down the gain a little to get those highlight details back. Before, after. In clip number 3, we're going to start by using the lift master wheel, and I'm going to use the center wheel of my mouse and roll this till my Y, which is my luma, which is another word for brightness, is at -0.20. That is so the trace of the black in the green channel is just hitting 128. Now I'll go to my gain and drag the master wheel down so my Y is at 0.60. Because it is a sunny day, I'm going to go to my gamma, and just by bringing this up to 0.15, I'm getting that feel of a sunny day. Hit the bypass here to see the before and after. I'm going to bring this a little bit more into range. So I'm actually going to bring the lift down so that the green trace is just hitting the 128 line. And I'll also adjust the gain so that the green trace in the highlights is just at the 896 line. This image has a blue tint. So we first are going to start with the color balance on the lift, and we can see here that there is a lot of blue in the darker range of this image. There's a little less green and there's much less red. So it's a cooler cast in the shadows right now, which we can balance out by taking our color control in the lift and just slowly dragging this up towards red and orange until the trace of our red is at the 128 line. And if you're not happy with it, you can double click that center control point and try it again. And actually, yeah, something like that is probably better. Same thing with the gain. Plenty of blue in the highlights, maybe a little less green and much less red. I'm gonna go straight up and then over to the left a little bit towards that orange until I get something like that. This parade here might not be perfect, but we're trying to get it as close as possible. With this, we're going to use the primaries bars. You can use the drop-down menu for primaries bars. Looking at our parade, we see that the luma is right here at 128. I'm going to go down to -03. I'm going to go to our gain, bring this down so that our green trace is just about at the 896 line. The reason we do our brightness, then our color, is we change the brightness and we are, as a result, affecting the saturation of the colors. So that's why we do the brightness first and then move on to the color. Now, because there's nothing white here, it might be hard to white balance our image. So I'm going to right click on the viewer and go show picker RGB value. And you might find that your picker doesn't show up. If this is set to something else and you pick show RGB picker, it won't show up. So you'll have to set this to qualifier and then it will show up for you. So if we know this bandana is gray, we're using numbers of the red, green, and blue channels on the bandana to tell us when the image is white balanced. So the best thing to do is to raise up the blue and then bring down the red and just keep trying to balance little by little. So we'll go to our blue and we'll say, let's add 2 blue and look at it. All right, we brought our blue up a little bit to 66. Now let's go to the red and the gamma and bring that down. The numbers change wherever you put it, but we can see right here 68, 62, 63. That's not bad. That's pretty good. 63, 54, 54, 59, 55, 57. That's pretty good. It's close enough. If we try to get exact, maybe things won't look quite right anyways, so we'll just stick with that. Let's look at the before and after. And this I can call balanced. Notice that the parade isn't even in the highlights. There's more red, a little less green, much less blue. That's because there's just so much red, yellow, and orange in the shot that this is the nature of this parade. That's why we're using the midtones as our guide for color balancing this shot. With this shot, we're going to start by using primary controls in the adjustment strip. Down here, we can go to page 2. First, we're going to start by adjusting our shadows. Bring these down until the green trace is just below the 128 line. Then we'll come over here to our highlights, drag this up until the green is just above the 896 line. With the image wipe enabled, I can take a look at the parade of 17 and of clip number 6. The brighter one, this is clip number 6, which is actually our still that we have saved in the gallery. On the right is clip number 6. On the left is clip 17. We can use this not only to compare the image on the viewer, but also to compare the parade in the lower right. and we can see that 17 is not as bright and it needs to come up quite a bit. I'll start by using the gain master wheel, and I will bring that up until the parade starts to match. See, now the green on 17 is getting closer to that on 6, and same with the red and the blue. Maybe I'll bring it up a little more and see, maybe a little less. That looks good. Now I'm looking at the hat. There's more saturation in 6 than there is in 17. I'll go to our adjustment strip and I'll bring up the saturation. If I disable the node, I can see the before of shot 17 and the after, and I can compare. They're pretty close. You might want to do a little bit more work, but it's almost spot on. And you can close the image wipe on the left. When you're using the image wipe, sometimes it helps to do Option F to give yourself more of a expanded view of what you're looking at. Take a look at the questions on page 363, try and answer them, and then take a look at the answers on page 364.